Jerry Wexler is credited as the person that came up with the term R&B, which we all know stands for rhythm and blues. And the reason is because before black music was called it was called race music. And he came up with the name R&B because it was offensive. He didn't want to call it race music anymore. So when it comes to R&B music, man, my favorite is soul genre. The soul genre. Memphis soul, Al Green stuff, neo soul, D'Angelo, Philly soul, Gamble and Huff, Motown and all that. I love it all soul. But what about blue-eyed soul? What is the definition of blue-eyed soul? According to Wikipedia, the term blue-eyed soul was coined in the mid-1960s to describe white artists whose sound was similar to that of the predominantly black Motown and Stax Records labels. Though many R&B stations in the United States in that period would only play music by black musicians, some began to play music by white acts considered to have soul feeling. Their music was then described as blue-eyed soul. They say it was a Philadelphia radio DJ named Georgie Woods who was the one to have coined the term blue-eyed soul in 1964, initially to describe the Righteous Brothers, and then white artists in general who received airplay on rhythm and blues radio stations. And it's a lot of them. They try to say Tom Jones, Dusty Springfield, Hall & Oates, Tina Marie, George Michael, John B., Justin Timberlake, Robin Thicke, Josh Stone, Michael Bolton, Simply Red, Michael McDonald. Michael McDonald was great. And there's many more. There's too many to name, but there was a song that black people used to love and sing word for word called What You Won't Do for Love by Bobby Caldwell. And still to this day, I believe a lot of people still don't know that he's white. For real. Everybody just thought he was a black artist. Some say he sounds like a mixture of George Benson, Donny Hathaway, and Peeble Bryson. Wow. Yeah, I can hear it. He was self-taught for the most part when it came to playing instruments. And his music though has been sampled by a lot of artists, especially rap. Loonies, Gangstar, Guru, Aaliyah, Father MC, AZ, Biggie, Erykah Badu, and many more. You can hear his music in songs like Gotta Get Mine by MC Breed featuring Tupac, the song Do for Love by Tupac in 1997, The Light by rapper Common. A lot of people has used his sounds, man. Bobby Caldwell put in a lot of work too, like over 14 albums or more. But the crazy part is the way he died though. The way he passed away was very, very sad. And he had to live in a lot of pain the last 6 years of his life. And I wish they can sue. I wish they can sue him, but it's just not possible. He was in a lot of pain, man, because he was still performing too, man, everything before he got sick. Let's get into his story though, man. Now, Bobby Caldwell was born on August 15th, 1951 in Manhattan, New York, but he was raised in Miami, Florida. Now, his parents were actually singers and entertainers themselves. His parents, Bob and Carolyn Caldwell, also had their own local variety TV shows. They had a show, one show was called the 42nd Street Review, which they did in New York, and they had another show called Supper Time that they did in Pittsburgh. But by the time Bobby turned 5 years old, the family had moved to Miami, Florida. Now, ever since an early age, music was in his roots. He used to sing for his family and friends, since he was a toddler, just for enjoyment and get a laugh out of everybody. And his parents were big fans of Ella Fitzgerald music, Frank Sinatra, Tony Bennett, Nat King Cole, and they liked all that big band stuff. But growing up, Bobby, he listened to everything. He loved rock and roll, jazz and R&B music, and he was inspired by a lot of musicians, the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix. He said he loved the Philly soul, Gamble and Huff stuff, loved the whole Motown, and Marvin Gaye was his favorite artist, he said. That was the one for him, Marvin Gaye. He loved the Four Tops, the Spinners, the Temptations, and also being in Miami, he said he loved reggae and Latin music too. Now, around the age of 10 years old, his parents saw that he was getting serious about music and had him take piano lessons, in which at the time wasn't the instrument he really wanted to play. But then he picked up the first instrument that he really loved and started learning how to play, which was the guitar. He said he had to mow a lot of yards to buy his first guitar. And he learned and taught himself how to play by listening to the Beatles and James Brown every day for hours till he mastered it. And by the time he turned 14 years old, he ended up forming his first group, which was called the Nightwalkers. And they all would practice in each other's garages and play at school events and functions and stuff. But after that group didn't work out, he formed another band called Kathmandu. And they started to perform locally in clubs and bars all around Florida. But then their life would change, because while performing in a club one night, him and his band had caught the attention of rock and roll R&B legend Little Richard, who thought they sounded great, and he offered them a job to be his backing band because he had just fired his band. And for Bobby, he was happy because he wanted to get out of Florida anyway, and he knew he had to get over to the West Coast to make it big with his music. And when they got with Little Richard, he took them all across the world on a superstar level. They performed everywhere, Las Vegas. They were on TV and everything. Rolling with Little Richard, you're going to be everywhere at that time. But, after 4 years of that, being with Little Richard, him and the band, they ended up leaving Little Richard, and they wanted to pursue their own career. And his band, Kathmandu, did end up getting a deal with mainstream records, but nothing really came out of it, and they left the label. But that's when Bobby discovered that he really could sing and he could songwrite. And his band members noticed it too, because he was actually better than the lead singer they had at the time. But the group, Kathmandu, they broke up and ended up going their separate ways. And Bobby, he was ready to go solo, but instead of going solo right away, he formed another band called the Radio Flyers, in which he really put together for to back his solo material. And they started playing all over California, hoping to get a deal. Bobby wrote all the music. He wrote all the music and everything. And some of the members in that band started to get jealous when he didn't use them when he was in the studio recording. And plus, he didn't have enough money to support them anyway. So once that band fell apart, he tried to go on and pursue his solo career, passing his demo to labels out there in California and managers, meeting people, but nobody gave him a chance. And that's when he decided to pack it up, go back home, which really made him feel depressed and feel like a failure. But what could he do? Now back at home in Miami, he tried to do the independent thing, and he did release a single called The House Is Rockin', but nobody still would give him a record contract. And his father wanted him to come and work with him in the real estate thing, and in which he really didn't want to do, but music just seemed like it wasn't going to happen for him. Until one day, his mother gave him an article from the Miami Herald about a disco group called KC and the Sunshine Band. We all know KC and the Sunshine Band. And that's when he decided to get in contact with the record label they were signed to, which was TK Records. Now, see, TK Records was really a disco and R&B record label with artists like the Hughes Corporation. They had this song called Rock the Boat. George McCrae, who had the #1 song called Rock Your Baby for the disco era. Anita Ward, who had a song called Ring My Bell that hit #1 on the charts. And of course, they had Casey and the Sunshine Band. They had like 5 singles that hit #1. Get Down Tonight, That's the Way I Like It, Shake, Shake, Shake Your Booty, and all that. Betty Wright was also on that label too. And even Weird Al Yankovic was on that label at one point. But anyway, so, Bobby went down to TK Records with all his songs. He wrote in a big grocery bag and he let them hear him. And they liked it. They loved his talent. 2 days later, they signed him to the label. He was perfect for what they were looking for at the time anyway, because it was the late 70s and disco music was fading out. And Bobby had that, when they heard Bobby, he had that pop, jazzy R&B sound that was starting to come in. The label was looking for a talent like Boz Scaggs, which was his label mate. But look, once he signed to TK Records, at the age of 26 years old, he started recording his debut album. And when he turned the album into the label CEO, Henry Stone, he told him that they loved the album, but it's just missing a radio single. Now, Bobby wanted a song called My Flame to be the single, but the label wanted something else. And that's when he went back into the studio. 2 days later, he recorded the song What You Won't Do for Love. And when the label and everybody heard that, they were happy and excited with that song being the single. But then they looked at Bobby with his hair all down to his shoulders and everything, and was like, we got to figure out how to market your image. Now, the next problem they had was how to market him to a black fan base, because his style of music sounded so R&B and soul. And TK Records, they had a lot of power and connections in black radio stations. That was the label's fan base. Bobby said he never thought he sounded black. He just thought he sounded like a white guy that was influenced by R&B music. So when it came time to shoot his album cover, they did a shoot on him with his hair all long, came down to his shoulders at the beach. But everybody was worried that that album wasn't going to sell if they see this white looking guy on the cover singing R&B. So that's when Bobby decided to take matters into his own hands. He decided to change it, and he drew a mysterious man sitting on a park bench far away. And everybody at the company loved that idea of that picture. It was like a silhouette drawing or something. And they decided to go with that. And when they released the single, What You Won't Do for Love, in September 1978, the song hit #9 on the Billboard Hot 100, #6 on the Hot Selling Soul Singles chart, and #10 on the Easy Listening chart. The black people love that song, man. The horns in that just make the track sound so smooth too. You know what's crazy? When the song started to take off on the radio, people, they just had no clue he was white. Nobody never knew he was white. They just thought he was black. Until R&B singer Natalie Cole. Now, Natalie Cole had invited him to open up on her tour, which at the time was her first own tour. That was her headline tour, her own tour, because she loved the song What You Won't Do for Love. And at the time, she was the hottest artist out with songs like This Will Be, Inseparable, I Got Love on My Mind, Our Love, and the list goes on with Natalie Cole. But she wanted Bobby to open up for her on her tour. And it was in Cleveland, Ohio, in front of about 5,000 to 7,000 fans, which was all black people who knew his song, What You Won't Do for Love, but they had never seeing what he looked like. They thought the song was sung by a black guy. Bobby said, Bobby Caldwell said, when he came out on that stage for the first time and the black people saw him, it was so quiet that you can hear a pin drop. But after 10 minutes of the set, he had them and they was going crazy. Wow. He said he had them going crazy after 10 minutes though. He said that was the night he became a man and was embraced by the black community and R&B radio and realized that music has no color. Soul music has no color. Black people love that song, y'all. And you know, that song has been covered by a lot of artists. Natalie Cole and People Bryson did it as a duet. Phyllis Hyman, Michael Bolton, Boys to Men. And we all heard the sample version Tupac did for his single titled Do For Love. Aaliyah sampled it, Age Ain't Nothing But a Number. A lot of artists sampled that song, did covers to it. They say it's like 70 or more versions of artists remaking and sampling that song out. Wow. Another song on that album though called My Flame, which he wanted to be the first single, but it came out as the second. But My Flame was sampled for Biggie's song Sky's the Limit featuring R&B group 112, which ended up going gold. And actress singer Vanessa Williams also did a cover of the My Flame song. But anyway, you know, the album comes out and Bobby Caldwell, the album went double platinum in the USA and platinum over Japan. Japan loved Bobby over there. He has a big loyal fan base in Japan. Now, also around that time, he had met reggae legend Bob Marley. Now, how he met Bob Marley was through his mother. Like I said earlier, his mother and his father was into real estate. And his mother sold Bob Marley. She actually sold Bob Marley his house. And ever since then, him and Bobby became good friends. Now, in 1980, he released his second album titled Cat in the Hat. And he actually had a picture of himself on that album cover. And that album hit number 46 on the R&B charts and 113 on the Hot 200 charts. He had some good songs on that album too, like Coming Down from Love. But the song titled Open Your Eyes was my favorite. And you know, we all know that song because Common sampled that song for his song called The Light from his 2000 album titled Like Water for Chocolate, in which I love that song too. That's my junk too. And that song was nominated for a Grammy for Common Sense. But you know, the Cat in the Hat album was certified gold in the US and went platinum again over in Japan. But after that album, his label, TK Records, ended up shutting down due to financial problems, and the label was brought by no other than gangster of the music business Morris Levy, Roulette Records. And that's when Bobby ended up signing to the label called Polydor Records. And in 1982, he released his third album titled Carry On, which went certified gold in Japan. Now, on that album, he had a song called Jamaica that he did it as a tribute to his friend Bob Marley, who had just died from cancer at the age of 36 years old. And he also did some songwriting for other artists too. He wrote a song called Never Loved Before by Roberta Flack. Now, in 1983, he released his fourth album titled August Moon, but he only released it in Japan. And that album went gold also. I told y'all, he was a big artist in Japan. The Japan market, they loved him over there. They used to call him Mr. AOR, which is an acronym for Adult Oriented Rock. He was doing sold out shows and tours in Japan. But then he ended up losing that record deal after the album didn't sell because of poor promotion. That's probably why it never came out in the US till years later in the 90s. And, you know, the album didn't sell because of poor promotion. And that's when he decided to move to California and start just songwriting for other artists. One of his friends, label mate Boz Scaggs, really was the one who suggested to him to go and write for others because he has a gift for writing. And, in 1984, he did the song called Never Give Up for the movie called Night of the Comet. In 1985, he helped co-write the song called Janet from the legendary Motown group the Commodores for their Night Shift album. He wrote the song called The Next Time I Fall for a former Chicago band leader, singer, Peter Cetera, featuring Amy Grant, which hit #1 on the Billboard magazine's Hot 100 and Adult Contemporary chart. And that song was nominated for a Grammy for Best Pop Performance by a duo or group with vocals in 1986. Now, that same year in 1986, he did the song called Educated Girl for the Rodney Dangerfield movie called Back to School, and he wrote the song called Angel for Neil Diamond that year. He continued working he wrote with Al Jarreau, Boz Scaggs, Natalie Cole, many more artists around that time. In 1988, he got his first acting role in a Puerto Rican movie called Salsa. That same year, he did the theme song for the movie called Mac and Me, called Take Me, I'll Follow You. But he continued to work with other artists, writing and producing from R&B, pop, and jazz material, because he didn't have a deal at the time. But then he ended up getting a deal with Syndrome Records. And in 1989, he released the album called Heart of Mine. In 1991, he released the album called Stuck on You. In 1995, he released the Soul Survivor album. And he did a remake on that album, man. Don't Ask My Neighbor by the R&B female group Emotions. He did a good job on that song, man. On that remake. He said on that song, one of the members from the Emotions was actually in the studio with him singing in the background. That's probably why it sounds good, man. Around 1996, he started to focus on big band music and more live stuff. And he released the album titled Blue Condition with the production of an orchestra. He started messing with the orchestra big band stuff on that album. And he had also released the album called Timeline, the Anthology. And on that album, I heard a song he did, Tell It Like It Is, which was a remake of Aaron Neville. That sounded great too. He remade it. Now, from October 1999 to January 2001, he portrayed his childhood idol, Frank Sinatra, in the Las Vegas musical called The Rat Pack Is Back. In 2013, he performed this song, What You Want to Do for Love, on the Soul Train Awards. And that was a great performance. As y'all seen that, that's on YouTube. Y'all want to check that out. In 2015, he released his final album titled Cool Uncle on his own label. And he worked with artists like CeeLo Green, Mayor Hawthorne, and the whole thing was produced by Grammy-winning producer Jack Splash. He worked with like Jennifer Hudson and Alicia Keys, a lot of people. But that album was dope too. But then in 2017 is when everything started to go downhill for Bobby Caldwell. He had suffered a ruptured Achilles tendon following a bad reaction to antibiotics he was prescribed. Now, the story behind that is he was at home and preparing for a 20-show tour in Japan, and one day, he had a cold, right? He had a cold, he had a runny nose, coughing, whatever. That's it. That's all he had, cold, runny nose, whatever. So, he had went to the urgent care clinic, right? And they had gave him a prescription for cough syrup and levofloxacin. Now, levofloxacin is used to treat a variety of bacterial infections, but it don't work for viral infections like a common cold or the flu. The antibiotics are also attacking the human body. But anyway, so he was taking the medication for days until one morning he woke up and he couldn't stand up. He wasn't able to stand. And him and his wife, they had seen that his Achilles tendons were hurting and inflamed. So when he went to see the doctor didn't even know what was going on with him. And the doctor asked him this, if he had recently jumped off a building or something, because for his legs to be like that. Wow, that's crazy. And they ran more tests on him. Come to find out, his Achilles had ruptured. And that's when his wife did a little more research and found out that levofloxacin medicine causes nerve damage. It messes with your blood sugar and all types of mess. And later down the line, Bobby had developed peripheral neuropathy, which damages the nerves outside the brain or spinal cord that can lead to loss of feeling in the extremities, digestive issues, and unrelenting pain. The pain was so bad that Bobby said it felt like a burning sensation, like somebody was hammering from his heels straight up. And he even lost feelings in his fingertips, which made it hard for him to play the guitar or piano, because that's how he make his money, traveling and performing. And he had to force himself to go out and perform while he was in the pain the whole time, man. But that's how he make his money. He had to pay his bills. He had to go do what he had to do, even in pain. When he performed, he was in pain. He had to sit down the whole show or perform sometimes in a wheelchair. Or he would have a cane and his helpers with him. And everybody was just concerned about him at that point. But Bobby, he didn't want nobody to worry. He would lie to the crowd saying he tripped or he rolled off the couch wrong or whatever. But he was in a lot of pain. And this is all because of that medicine they prescribed to him. Now, in 2019, Bobby ended up suing rapper Lil Nas X for $25 million for using his song titled Carry On without his permission. And I don't know if that lawsuit is settled or not. Now, Bobby said all you got to do is contact him. He's easily to reach. A lot of rappers reach out to him. He just say yes. He's let plenty of artists cover and sample his music for years. Just got to contact him and going to pay him. But, then COVID hit. 2020, when COVID hit, nobody could really go out and perform like that. And with Bobby's health condition, it just got worse. It got worse. Being home, stuck like that, it made him miserable. And, he would cry, man. He would cry. And eventually he just slipped into depression. His feet became so swollen that he couldn't even wear shoes. And that's when he just decided to just hang it up. Hang it up, man. And he retired from the music business. Sad, man. That medicine he took for that little cold destroyed his life and his music career, y'all. Wow. And on March 14th, Bobby Caldwell died at his home. His wife Mary said in the months leading up to his death, Bobby was eating very little and had lost a lot of weight. And then on the morning that he died, she said he came out from the bedroom with his walker. And, she was happy to see him moving around and being active and stuff. But when they sat together, he started to slouch on to her, man. And right there, after he slouched on to her, she said right there, he died right in her arms. Wow. Sad, man. Brings a tear to your eye almost, man, that he went out like that. She stated he was gone after 6 years and 2 months of torment. Wow. His wife Mary put out a tweet on Twitter about fluoroquinolone antibiotic that was prescribed to Bobby. And she wanted people to research and learn more about the bad side effects of this thing. She just hopes Bobby Caldwell's story will make people check the warnings and ask your doctor questions. Ask your doctor about these prescribed antibiotics. She said, ask the physician if they would take the drug themselves, because you don't want to go through what Bobby went through. Wow. And despite the potential for serious side effects of that medicine, the FDA maintained that in cases of serious bacterial infections, the benefits of these drugs outweigh the risk. That's very sad, man. And it's all because he had a bad reaction. Wow, man. He had a bad reaction. They prescribed this antibiotic that causes Achilles tendons to rupture. Wow, nerve damage. That's crazy. There's no book either on Bobby Caldwell's life, man. So hopefully somebody got something in the works about his journey. A movie, documentary, or something. His story definitely needs to be told. And the song, What You Want to Do for Love, one of the greatest love songs of all time. He was 71 years old. Rest in peace, Bobby Caldwell.